The reality of leadership is that impressions are made in a series of moments, and it happens so fast.
Mm.
And so I think recognizing as a leader, whether you're leading others or you're responsible for leading something, everyone's impression of you starts the moment that they meet you, and their bar is so high, and it is like this quick series of moments that formulate an impression, and impressions are really, really hard to change. And so I think I had this moment in which I said to myself, like, I cannot be stuck here too long, because every moment that I am stuck here leads somebody to believe that I can't get unstuck. And it leads somebody to believe that I'm an obstacle, and it leads somebody else to believe that I'm difficult. I realize how important that is, and that every single moment really, really matters.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation. The warrior this week is Jenica Myszkowski, former client, now friend, confidant, and colleague. She's a powerhouse C-suite leader who is the most curious and active listener that I know. Great at picking up subtleties in situations, growing talent, achieving, planning, and living with passion and purpose. So the amazing Jenica is with me today. Gosh, we've known each other for over 10 years now, right? Is that about right?
Yes, I think last time we counted it was
Gosh,
13.
Really? All right. So I have had a front row seat to so many parts of your life, personally, professionally, and immediately you're one of the first people that came to mind when I thought of who do I want to ask some of these questions of. So let's talk about gratitudes first. So when you think about 2022, like what's a real gratitude that stands out in your mind?
I'm really grateful that I took time over the summer to spend with my kids and travel, and like feel really lucky for the team that helped me do that, in terms of like the team at Paper Source that was leading beside me and let me spend more time with my kids and than I probably ever have during the summer, and take them to new places and have new adventures, and capture the work and the day-to-day operations of the business moving forward. So I think as I think about this last year, I feel really grateful for that time.
Do you think your kids noticed a difference that you were spending more time this summer versus other times? And if so, did they say anything that you were like, that's kind of cool?
Um, well, I think they have a warped perception of what summer means for adults. They
As you're supposed to as a kid.
like, right, 3 months off of school for them equals like, the same for parents. So I think they were really appreciative of what we did. And I think that they did feel my presence in different ways, but probably still like, wished I had the summer off of work.
Mm. What about when you think about the whole year of 2022? So, I mean, so much happened,
Mhm.
certainly for me personally and professionally. I'm so curious when you think about the whole year, was there one particular moment or experience where you felt like you fell forward? So
Mhm.
not only did you have a difficult experience, but you gained a lot from that experience.
Maybe not as much of a difficult experience, but something that I like learned a lot about myself from, and certainly had kind of like multiple moments of failure along the way. And so I had been running a small company. We were purchased and integrated into a much larger organization. And I went from being, the CEO and in charge of the day-to-day business to being a kind of a far removed member of the team because the business was so focused on the bigger kind of entity and the other brand. And so I waded through new culture, new teams, new people, new politics, new programs, new systems, and just like along the way had lots of moments of questioning myself and like turning in the wrong direction or doing something that I shouldn't. But I went from like being the boss to being the student. And I decided early on that I was just gonna like kind of slog through that in a way that would open my eyes to different things and that would teach me along the way. And so I think and I hope I gained a lot from the experience. And if I would have kind of acted without thinking, I probably would have walked into that experience and just thought I have nothing to learn. Um,
Yeah.
what is this all happening for? A little bit of like a victim mentality. But I decided I was just going to take every piece of it as an opportunity to learn more, know more, and just like further round out my leadership brand and my leadership tools. And so took it like one day at a time. And there were some days that were easy and like really, really enjoyable. And there were some days that weren't. And of course that's the same with every job, but I'm proud of moving through it. And I'm proud of moving through it with an open mind. And I think every little failure along the way helped me become more resilient in general.
Did you have a moment where you noticed that you needed to make the transition?
Mm,
So when I think of CEO and I
yes.
think of student, there's two completely different mind tracks there.
Mhm.
So like what were the differences for you?
I mean, I vividly remember the moment I had to make the decision, um, because I was finding myself frustrated about small things that I absolutely had zero control over.
Mm,
And so that can get frustrating. That adds up real fast, right? And it can really, really weigh on your work experience and
yeah.
how you show up every day and your mindset and who you are at home and who you are to your people and your team. And so I very vividly remember that moment I decided like this is not serving anyone. I, my job here is to lead us through this and not to like create barriers along the way.
Mm,
And I like zoomed out and was able to see myself as my role and not myself as the person. And that was really powerful because I have idiosyncrasies and like tendencies and as every leader does. But I think because um because I was in this like drinking from the fire hose, like learning the new expectations, I was in a seat in which I like really didn't have control any longer. And my natural tendency would be to kind of like fight, and fight's a strong word, but um, kind of push against that. And I just realized like that's going to cause more tension for everybody around me. Like my team
mm,
deserves better from me. They deserve an experience in which I am like a supportive part of the next chapter, and I'm an ally to the new team and the company, and that's going to like save me a lot of sleep, and that is going to be good for everyone. And it's just like not naturally probably how I would have shown up. But when I zoomed out and saw myself as like the leader and the person, it was a lot easier for me to work through that on a day-to-day basis. And along the journey, I learned a ton. I mean, I think anytime you can push yourself to a place of discomfort, it's when the real work happens. And even though I wasn't calling the shots, and even though I really didn't have, it was just such a different world in which the previous chapter was, and like one that kind of wasn't chosen, right? It was chosen for you. I still was able to take a lot away from the experience.
I think it's so important what you said in that you recognize you had a role to fulfill and it wasn't about the individual. Like just even that awareness is so important and it would be completely understandable if you were in your ego as here's who I am, this is what I've been trained to do, this is how I've been groomed and evolved in my leadership capabilities. No one would have necessarily questioned it because that's who you are. But the fact that you were able to say, wait a second, that's not what is appropriate in this situation. I have to recognize this is the role that I'm in. This is the path that we have to take. This is what's better for everyone, for the organization. That's amazing, Jenica. That is incredible self-awareness. So when you think about, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of people who you're mentoring who are formally or informally trying to get on your calendar for advice and perspective on things. Like if you were to capture that insight and that experience you just shared with me and say it to someone that was struggling with their own leadership or struggling with a decision, how would you offer this piece of advice to them? What would you say? You use the word discomfort, which sounds great, is terrifying in the moment to go to that place. But I'm just sort of curious what comes up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things come up. Number one, the reality of leadership is that impressions are made in a series of moments and it happens so fast. And so I think recognizing as a leader, whether you're leading others or you're responsible for leading something, everyone's impression of you starts the moment that they meet you, and their bar is so high, and it is like this quick series of moments that formulate an impression, and impressions are really, really hard to change. And so I think I had this moment in which I said to myself, like, I cannot be stuck here too long, because every moment that I am stuck here leads somebody to believe that I can't get unstuck. And it leads somebody to believe that I'm an obstacle, and it leads somebody else to believe that I'm difficult and that I'm not the person that can, the park my ego and move through this. And so I moved really, really fast on having that realization and like shifting into gears, because I realize how important that is, and that every single moment really, really matters. I would also say that leadership is about who the organization needs you to be, and not necessarily always who you are. And that's a lesson that I probably learned through this, to be honest. And I feel like probably have gone wrong in some other places of my career. And Jeannie, you've probably seen some of those things manifest and unfold. Sometimes who you are isn't always enough.
So amazing. I love that. I love what you're saying too, is I think it's also the acknowledgement that this is hard work. This is big stuff. When you're playing at the C-suite level, there's a lot that goes into it. And I've never heard that you said impressions is a series of moments. I've never heard that expression. I think that's brilliant.
Thanks. And then I also think, like, just asking whoever I was talking to, are you how are you showing up right now? And are you the person that the organization needs? And are you, I think just like being able to disconnect from your identity, is like an important skill to learn. And I think what I've learned as I've grown up in jobs and sometimes in bigger jobs, it's like too much of my identity was about who I was at work and about who I was as a leader. And I think when you can disassociate a little bit and be able to say, okay, this is my identity, this is who I am, this is the leader I am, this is how I like to show up. But what is the challenge? And what does what does the organization need? And what does the team need? And what do the investors need? What does the board need? Whatever your like group of constituents is that you're serving, really being able to ask yourself, like, through their eyes, what are they looking for and what do they need of you, and then being able to like disassociate enough from the identity that you've kind of always obviously always had and always drawn on for your success, and being able to nuance that to the situation is so important.
God, so good. So good.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.